Hello, this is Msddah. Welcome to my channel. I am here with a very special guest who I don't believe needs any introduction. But for those of us that don't know who he is, this is Lanre Dabiri, also popularly known as Eldee the Don. Welcome, Eldee.
Thank you.
Welcome to my show.
Thank you for your very kind introduction. I appreciate that. Thank you.
No, thank you for being here. It means a lot. So I'm going to start by asking if you would just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Man, where do I start from? Okay, I'm going to give you the version that I give to people who have no clue who I am.
Okay.
And I'm talking about like my American friends, my new friends who probably just met me like a year or two ago. And they say, oh, what's your story? And I say, well, I grew up in Kaduna. It's a place in northern Nigeria. I moved to Lagos where I went to college, and then after college I moved to the U.S. Right, been in the U.S. since 2002 really. Living in the U.S. I lived in Columbus, Ohio for a little bit, and then I moved to Atlanta. While I was in Atlanta, actually started from college, I started a music band called Trybesmen. And Trybesmen, I guess, is one of the groups that's credited for the Afro beats, like contemporary Afrobeat sound, right? What we did was like hip hop mixed with reggae, R&B, traditional like Afro beats, and local music in Nigeria and West Africa in general. And that kind of started a trend. And while I was in college as well, I started what I guess still is the largest physical distribution network in West Africa, which I think is what helped Nollywood movies actually cross over to all these different regions. That was something that I, initiated back then. And then I had an interesting career with my band. The group became very popular. We became like popular across Africa and in the diaspora with like African communities. And then I had a solo career as well after the group. I released 5 albums. I toured the world. At some point in 2012, I believe, I just thought to hang up the mic. Like I figured, I was starting a family. I had one daughter at the time, and I just wanted to spend more time and do family stuff. Through my career as an artist, I feel like I never really was the guy people saw on TV. Like it was a character. Like the person that I was becoming more of who, like me.
No.
While my character was also kind of blowing up, and I had this whole image that was different from who I really was. And, I started feeling the need to dial things back so I could just be myself. You know what I mean? So I decided at the time that I didn't want to tour anymore. I wanted to spend time with the family. I want to grow with my kids. I didn't get the opportunity to have my dad always be around when I was growing up.
Okay.
And I feel like I missed out on, the relationship that I could have had, with him. My mom worked like super hard. She was a bank manager for a long time. So she was hardly ever around as well because she was busy, right?
Right.
So I felt like I grew up, I was raised by the community in a sense, and I didn't really want that for my kids. I wanted to kind of be there, especially in today's world where, people can influence your situation a whole lot easier than back in the day. So basically decided that I was gonna, dial things back, do me, focus on the things that make me happy, which really at the time I started thinking, like, man, I have a daughter now, I have to be serious, I have to get away from being in the clubs 3 nights a week, I need to, not be in London hanging out with all these groupies, and whatnot.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I quit, and then I come from a family of engineers. My dad is an engineer, so I've always had an IT background. I worked with him while I was in college, and then just before I moved to the States, even while I was in the States, he is also credited for being one of the pioneers of um, digital networking technologies in Nigeria. So he was the chief engineer on the project that set up the telecom network in Nigeria. He also did the analog to digital conversion in Nigeria as well, for like the telecoms industry, for Nitel, which is Nigerian telecoms back in the day. So I was kind of a part of that. So like, early, he was like a, what's the word now? He's one of those guys who was an enthusiast, was a technology enthusiast. So he was up on all the new trends. I mean, my dad actually literally brought the internet to Nigeria. Like, if there's one person you could say, this is the guy who actually brought the internet to Nigeria, that was my father. So, we had we had 1 meg at home in 1996. I don't think anybody had internet at that time. And not even in the States, it wasn't common to have that kind of internet. Like, we had a satellite dish. Like, he had like that whole. That's who my father was. So he's a technology guy. So I say that to say that I've had that sort of background, and when I decided I was gonna quit music, that was one of the things that I figured, that I should do is, tap into my technology experience. And so I, have founded a couple startups. Playdata is one of them. It's a media monitoring company that tracks like music, airplay, advertising, plays, radio, TV for like advertisers, pretty much. That's one of them. I have a couple others, but yeah, dive into that now. So anyway, this is kind of the short version. It's actually way longer than this, and I know this is really long, but so that's where I am, and I've been in Atlanta, and I do some IT consulting on the side as well.
That's awesome.
So yeah.
Awesome. Great intro.
Thank you.
Thanks. The next question is, what 3 words would you like people to use to describe you?
That is an interesting one. 3 words.
So think of people that know you well. Maybe your
Oh, okay. So
your
those
wife,
who really know
your
me,
friends, yeah.
those who really know me, serious, I think is one word. They always call me. They say I'm too serious. I am caring, I guess. They say so. I don't think so, but yeah, they say so. I care about. I mean, I like to be fair, and I like people to be fair, or whatever. Yeah. So I guess I am caring, and creative. I hear that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it okay to add inspiring to that list? Because
Hey.
I think you're inspiring.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I appreciate
Absolutely. That. So, which leads to my third question. Who inspires you and why?
I'm inspired by various individuals for different reasons. So, if I were thinking about like innovation, right? I'm inspired by people like Steve Jobs and and the Zuckerbergs and the technology guys, right? Maybe not one person. If we're talking about like entertainment, inspired by people like Diddy and Jay-Z and like Jimmy Iovine and people who are really like taking things to the next level, and people who have helped like the culture to be relevant and also understand what it means to make a business out of art, right? If you're talking about, I guess those are my interests, right? Technology, entertainment. But if you're talking about like, creative people, like, and people who write, and people who inspire people. It's funny you use the word inspiring. People who are very conscious of how they construct what they put out there, and how they're really trying to use their creativity to help other people put things in perspective. Then I have a lot of respect for like Yuval Noah Harari. I'm a huge follower of his. He's a historian from the University of it's a university in Jerusalem. I forget the university name now, but he's a professor, right?
Oh, okay.
He used to be a professor at Oxford in the UK. But he's written a lot of books. He does a lot of talks and seminars and stuff like that. And I really like the message that he tries to put out there. And someone else that I really like is Malcolm Gladwell. I like Malcolm because he finds a way to communicate with, even though I sometimes feel like he's very opinionated, I feel like he's able to communicate in a way that helps you see things. And I think that because I am also a natural teacher, I learn from his technique of how he teaches things, you know what I mean, and how he helps people to see perspective, and how sometimes it's not about, you know, what I feel versus what you feel, but it's really just perspective. You know what I mean? And I appreciate the way he delivers it. So yeah.
So my next question for you is, if you had to pinpoint a specific target audience you speak to, what would that target audience be? Would it be adults? Would it be kids, women?
I know this is going to sound super vague, but I want to speak to anybody who's listening.
Okay, well, that's not vague at all.
Yeah. Anybody who's listening, because I try to find commonality. And I think that we all have things in common. And I think that if we start to think more from a position of commonality, we won't focus much on difference. So if I say, oh, you know, I want to talk to these people, it means that there's a message for them that is not for other people, and I don't want to be that guy. I just want to talk. You know.
Wow, makes sense. I had to reflect on that one a minute, because I didn't expect that response. Honestly, that's good.
Yeah.
Now you're getting all philosophical. Okay.
That's what I say. They call me serious. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's nice. So, my next question for you is, what would be your advice to those looking to go into the music industry?
The music industry is changing and rapidly. When I was in the music industry, things were a little different than what applies now. Well, based on what I've seen, I think the most important thing for anyone who's trying to be in the music business is to figure out ways to get exposure. Recognize that attention span is diminishing for most people. So whatever it is that you're creating, if you're in it to be commercially successful, your art needs to not only be creative but captivating. So it's a struggle for attention. It's almost like right now, as a musician, you are a brand that is struggling for mindshare, like everyone else in that space. And I'm talking Coca-Cola and Pepsi and CNN and everyone else who's just another brand that's struggling for attention. So as a musician, you want to go into that space. The first thing you want to do is recognize that. Nobody's going to do you any favors. You will get out there, you'll put your content out, and you're going to have to be aggressive with the way you get people to listen to it. So more plays, captivate, and that's how you kind of can get a little bit of people's attention to where you can build a fan base, and then you can exploit that fan base.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Again, long answer, but
no, it's fine, and it makes sense, because I didn't really think of it like that, like the whole different outlets that you have to compete against.
Yeah. Because think about it, I'm on Instagram, I'm looking at brands all day. It's either I'm consciously or unconsciously, that's all I'm looking at. It's just brands. The more I see your brand, the more I remember you. The less I see your brand, the less I know you. I met an artist that said, "Oh, I don't have social media," and I said, "Well, you're in the wrong business," because it's just not going to work.
Wow.
I mean, it's possible for you to not have social media, but you're going to have to pay for it.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have to pay people who have social media to do what it is that you need in this era.
Business. Yeah. You're right. If you had to choose a favorite song of yours, or a collaboration with someone else, which would it be and why?
Favorite song of mine?
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably go with One Day.
One Day. And why?
Maybe because it's relevant right now.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe because of the political landscape. Maybe because it's the one that is closest to the tip of my tongue. Just thinking about where I feel people need to be, like, mentally.
Right.
Yeah. So One Day, is a political. It's like a socially conscious-y type, song that's talking about the ills in the society and stuff. So yeah, I'd probably go with that one. If I can have a second one though, it's
Yes.
the one I did for my daughter, Always.
Always.
Yeah. Because those two songs kind of came from the bottom of my heart.
Oh.
So I feel like they're songs that I like, that I wrote, that I feel that I really connect with, and there's still a residual interest in, like, the things that I'm interested in right now in those two songs. There's some of the other songs that I made that, even though they were really big, like, I look back and I'm like, yeah, I did that for the culture. Like, that wasn't really me. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
those two I still feel connected to.
And that response makes sense. What you said at the end, like what you did for the culture, because now it ties back to your intro and
Right.
where you are right now. Like, it makes
Right.
sense.
Right.
The
Okay.
response.
All right.
Nice.
Appreciate
Nice. So my next question is there anything you would like to share with the audience regarding following one's passion? And the reason I thought about this question is because I feel like you understand the challenges that comes with following your passion, like the fear, the hesitation, the culture, the history, where you came from, where you at, how to adapt. That's pretty much what I was thinking with that question.
Okay, so as far as passion goes, everyone should have one,
Okay.
or multiple. As far as how to pursue the passion, I think it's about really approaching things technically. So you need to understand where you're trying to go, and you need to have a roadmap of how you're going to get there. Sometimes people get lost in the sauce. They get lost in the passion. I just want to be a photographer. I don't want to think about anything else. It's good to be like that in the early stages, but recognize the phase that you're in. You can't be in that phase when you have bills to pay and things are happening in your life. You know what I'm saying? So that's why sometimes I feel like people's passions don't really pan out, because they're distracted by other things, but they still want to be just artistic, or they want to be, like, just focused on that one thing they want to do, but somehow they're unable to, like, articulate themselves in the way that actually gets them there. So if you have a roadmap, you understand what exactly you need, the steps that you need to take to get there. And then the second thing is read. There's so much knowledge in books.
I agree.
So much knowledge in books. And people, like, really, really don't realize how much you can learn from other people's experiences and other people's mistakes. And, there are people who spend time, who dedicate their lives even sometimes to understanding how to do stuff. And that's why there's so many how-to books out there. Go and read about whatever your passion is and learn how to, or at least understand how not to, do it. So that's what I would say to anyone who has a passion out there, is be very technical about it. Don't get lost in your passion, because you can, most of the people who failed really got lost in their passion. Is the reason why they failed.
Could you speak more on getting lost in one's passion?
Okay,
Because I don't think a lot of people can relate with
to that. Okay, so getting lost in your passion is not being realistic, being idealistic about the things that you expect, and about the reaction that you want from your audience. And it's one thing to sit and feel like, oh, you know what? I am the most creative. It's good to have confidence, right? But then if you put yourself out there and people don't react to you like you are the most creative, then maybe you're not the most creative. But sometimes you get lost in that, no, I am the most creative. I'm going to, hold on to this, and I'm going to do this. Not that it's always a bad thing. I'm saying be more responsive to what's going on around you, right? Don't get lost in the art. Don't get lost in an unrealistic sort of approach to whatever it is that you're doing. I'll give you an example. So you start off as a rapper in Nigeria, right? The audience for rap music is limited. And you believe that you're as good as the rappers in New York. You want to rap like New York while you're in Nigeria, okay? You're rapping to a limited audience. If you don't recognize that your audience is limited, you'll be frustrated. Because you'll always feel like, why do they like all this soccer? Why don't they like my own? Mine is authentic, it's original, it's whatever. That's for your pocket. Because you're being unrealistic about your situation. I'm not saying do what Wizkid is doing or do what, you know, someone else is doing. I'm just saying understand where you are and the game you're playing and know what your restrictions are. And then function from that position. Don't have unrealistic expectations, because that's how people get lost in their passion. That's how you get lost in that, because you're sitting there thinking, but I'm better than this, or I can do this, or my stuff is this, and if people aren't reacting to it, maybe it isn't. You know what I mean? So
Thank you so much. Being an artist that lived in the US and Nigeria, what are some notable differences in the music industry? I know.
The music industry is there are lots of similarities, but they're way more there are a lot of things that are not quite the same. So I'll talk about the similarities first.
Okay.
Some of the major ones is that, you know, it's music, right? It's just created content. You need to promote content, so that's pretty much the same everywhere.
Right.
However, in order to promote content, you need to have some sort of infrastructure that helps with advertising, marketing, promotions, that helps you monetize, that helps you track your monetization, that helps you that helps all creative people actually earn from what they do. Okay. And I feel like the major difference is that we don't have that in Nigeria. Is we don't have the infrastructure in place to help people actually monetize their creativity. Not the way it's set up here. Like over here, if you're a photographer, it's difficult for people to use your content without paying you. There's also a lot of like legal protection for people who create and intellectual property, you know, out here, which there really isn't in Nigeria. I mean, I have a court case with a large telecom company that's been in court since 2011. It's been 7 years, you know, for a case that really was a slam dunk. You know, they used my content without permission. There's no argument. The first time it was in front of a judge, he looked at it and it was like, okay, why are you guys even here? Like, why don't you guys just go talk it out? Because this is clearly a violation, right? But it's dragged because the system doesn't protect people who have intellectual property. If the system protected people like myself, then people would be able to, you know, monetize their content or whatever it is that they're creating. So I think that's like the major difference. Everything else, as far as like, you know, everybody's getting on social media to promote their music, you're going on tours, you're doing this, all of that is pretty much the same. Earning potential is something else that's pretty different. And that's because in the States, there are way more people and way more venues and way more opportunities for creatives. So you can be in one of 5 tiers of artists in the US and live off of your music, even if nobody really knows you like on the mainstream. So you could be like a big time artist, you could be like a mainstream artist, you could be like a mid-size artist and still make 6 figures in the US. But in Nigeria, you have to be mainstream, otherwise you're not even gonna break even. So that's kind of one of the differences, and that's because we don't have enough venues. It's because we don't have, where the population isn't liquid. We don't have enough, I guess, purchasing economic power to buy content and to really engage with the artists. I mean, over here you go to a concert, you're paying like, you know, $60 to $80 is like the average price if you buy it the week of the concert, right? So it's hard to do that in Nigeria. I mean, you don't even have enough venues to do that. in Nigeria. And then the way that it's set up here, and this is something that I was talking about the other day, when people compare like Nigerian artists to international artists, I was like, it's an unfair comparison because they're playing on two completely different fields. Like it's like night and day what's happening here with the artists here and the artists in Nigeria, because over here, if Drake goes on tour, he can book as many venues as the days that exist in a year. Right? He can book 365 venues and not have to go to any venue twice within the US. So he starts from New York and he does Madison Square, he goes to, Tennessee, he's in Charlotte, LA, and before you know what's happening, the year's out. And he's charging people $60, $80, $100, $200 per ticket. Now, if he's coming to Atlanta and he's only going to come to Atlanta once in a year because there's so many venues to perform at. If you live in Atlanta, you're definitely going to go for that show. Yeah. Because that's your only opportunity to see Drake. Right. So he will sell out. Yeah. However, if Drake lived in Atlanta and performed in Atlanta all the time and couldn't perform anywhere else but Atlanta, you'll pick and choose, right? Yeah, I'll go this weekend, maybe I'll go next weekend, you know what I mean? Like, and then when it's like that, what happens is people tend to not value the artist as much because, see finish. Niger, see finish kind of creeps in, and Wizkid is performing that. We saw him last week. We'll see him again. If Drake were to be an Atlanta native and he performed in Atlanta every weekend, of course it'd be the same thing. It's not about the quality of music. It's not about any of that. It's just about accessibility, availability. So imagine that there was an Eko hotel in every city in Nigeria, and we had more venues where people could actually go. Then it's possible for you to tour in Nigeria, and then every time you come to town, it's a big deal, right? But it's not really a big deal because all of it happens in Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt. That's it.
Wow, those are the main places.
So those are the main. Matter of fact, it's really Lagos and Abuja. Wow. Everywhere else is like, once in a while in Kaduna, once in a while in Jos or wherever else. So I think that's one of the major differences, and that's why the earning potential is really the same. However, the terrain limits Nigerian artists, and their. Yeah.
That's a good one. What prompted your decision to choose your current country of residence?
I think I kind of was just destined to be in America, really, because I went to an American school. I don't like SATs, and I passed and did all of that, and I was set up to come to the U.S. I was actually going to go to MIT, but then my dad last minute pulled the plug. So that didn't happen. So I was like, okay, whatever, I'll go to college in Nigeria, but I'm leaving as soon as I'm done, kind of thing. And I think it was just my exposure really from when I was younger to American culture and the fact that I went to, somewhat of an American school and the people that I was around and, stuff. So it felt like I was gonna end up here somehow, some way, so.
So it just made
So it just made it easy, and then the things that I was into too when I was younger. I mean, I was into hip hop, the African American culture. I was, those are the things that I gravitated towards when I was much younger. So it just,
Nice. My next question is, what is your view on gender equality based on where you've lived?
Well, I live in Atlanta, so I must be very liberal towards gender equality. I actually believe in folks being allowed to do whatever it is that they want. I don't think that it's anyone's right or position to determine how people live. I feel like whatever you do in your bedroom, really, like, it's not my business, right? True. And it shouldn't be anyone else's business. So long as it doesn't hurt children or like hurt people, then I really could care less. And I feel sometimes that people who talk about it aren't really concerned about the fact that, I think it's more of like a moral thing. So everyone has their own like moral code or whatever, and then they feel like, because this doesn't fit within my moral code, then I have to speak up against it. Right. But you don't need to speak up against it, is my thing. Is, yes, it may not sit well with my moral code, but I also recognize that my moral code is personal. That's mine. Like, you can have yours too. And if within yours it's okay, as long as you're not hurting any children or people who are disadvantaged because of what you're doing, then I don't care.
That's fine.
Yeah, because I would want to have the freedom to do what I want to do as well. So I don't feel the need to judge anyone. Yeah.
What about in Nigeria? Do you still?
Well, it's a moral issue. I don't think I don't think it's something that deserves to be criminalized. That's kind of taking things a little bit too far because what we've done in Nigeria is we've criminalized being gay or being, you know, whatever, transgender or, you know, and I think it's sad because we have bigger issues.
Right.
And I think that it's part of our unnecessary self-righteousness that's led us down that path because, I mean, and a lot of hypocrisy as well. Because if you really want to face Nigeria's issues, we have bigger problems. I mean, we have a problem with the fact that the young people in our country today are all criminal-minded. And I say that, and I know that that's going to sound crazy to most people, but the majority of people in Nigeria have a criminal mind. I hate to say that, like, publicly, and I actually feel really bad saying it, but that's the reality. That's an issue. And it's not that people are just bad, it's that people have become bad because of a need to survive. You know, I gave an example the other day about the plane that crashed with the soccer team somewhere in the mountains in Peru or something, and it was in the dead of winter, and they couldn't get away from the mountains, and they were stuck there, and people started dying, and it got to the point where they started eating their teammates to stay alive. People, at some point, no matter how civilized you are, no matter how, you know, morally upright you are, you will get to the point where things get so bad that people become a certain way. So I feel like that's a bigger challenge. Is the corruption is now it's like it's the culture. It used to be like those corrupt people, those girls, they're selling themselves, all these girls are like a show or something. Now everybody's in a show because everyone's thinking, what can I get out of the situation? Every girl is thinking, in every relationship, the guy ought to pay me for me to be a part of that relationship. That is prostitution, by definition. However, it's the state of the country that's led everyone down that path. So let's talk about those kind of things and stop worrying about a man and a man that fall in love. Like that's like way down the scale, pretty much. That's what I think about